I know what that's all about. My baby's just as mean as me. Sometimes a man don't treat her right. Shame the way we fuss and fight, but she gives as good as gets, alright. My baby's just as mean as me. She's kinda loud and rough, drinks wine and all that stuff. Sometimes I've had enough, then she smiles, and I reckon I can stay for a while. They say that love is blind, especially the passionate kind. I don't have to apologize. My baby's just as mean as me. Hard times, they come and go. She's mine and I'm her beau. She finds some scars to show, never mind, 'cause I ain't no different than mine. They say that love is blind, especially the passionate kind. I don't have to apologize. My baby's just as mean as me. My baby's just as mean as me.
Good morning and welcome to our sacred space. We are the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of Elkhart, a welcoming community encouraging religious freedom, nurturing individual spiritual and ethical growth, celebrating diversity, and promoting a just and sustainable world. I am Mary Perrin, and I am a member of the board of this congregation. Welcome to each of you.
Good morning and welcome to the worship service with the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of Elkhart. My name is Amy Kaliza DeBeck. My pronouns are she, her, and hers, and it is really a delight to have you with us this morning. What I want to start off with are prayers, good thoughts, moment of peace, however it is that you find it best to send your positive energy out into the world for everyone who has lost someone to COVID, is suffering with COVID, has already been through it, for all of the states that are choosing to not respect the mask mandate, for all of the lives that are disrupted and lost. And the good news going forth from this sadness that we hold inside of us all the time is that vaccines are here and hope is near. If you are 50 and older in the state of Indiana, you may get a vaccine, so make that appointment. All teachers are eligible through a federal program. Please make that appointment. Vaccines are going to make it easier for us to get together sooner at all. And I do want to tell you, I've had my first vaccine. In the state of Indiana, clergy are considered direct care workers, so that when restrictions are lifted and we can go into hospitals and we can go into nursing homes, we will be vaccinated to do that. So I've had my first and I'll have my second. Interestingly enough, March 11th was the last time that UUFE held an in-person board meeting, and it is the tradition of every UUFE board for the last 10 years or so to follow the board meeting with a trip to the Chubby Trout. And the only rule is that we do not discuss business. So the last time that I was out around people without a mask and without full realization of the specter of COVID-19 was on March 11th, 2020. And that's when I get my second shot. So, thinking of all of you, missing all of you, and wishing for all of us to be well, all of us to get better who have been ill, and for all of us and all of our loved ones going out until the whole world is involved, that COVID-19 become a manageable situation.
Go. We ring the gong 3 times, once for those who came before us and made a place for us. Once for those who are with us now. And once for those who will come behind and build on the dream. As I light this one candle in the chalice this morning, we are reminded of the strength and energy that is the heat and light generated from just this one small source. As we commit ourselves individually as one person to this faith community, we are reminded that combined with the light or the lives of all of us, we become a real force within our families, within this church community, within the city of Elkhart, within the state of Indiana, within our entire nation. Our combined commitment makes us a real source and force of strength in upholding of our UU values for social justice, for human equality and equity, for the affirmation of the human worth and dignity of every individual, the lives of women, disenfranchised segments of our society, and the LGBTQ community, and all of those serving us in leadership blend together to make us a holy and sacred people. The blessed souls of those who have preceded us in this life, for those who represent today's faith community, and for those precious souls that will follow in our footsteps, all rejoice and celebrate when this candle is lit. May this be the reality for every single one of us today and always. Good job.
Love is the spirit of this church, and service is its law. To dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another. This is our covenant.
One, two.
Today, on this Sunday, when March's theme is commitment, and tomorrow is International Women's Day, and all of March is Women's History Month, I choose to challenge each of us, each of you, to speak up in any way we can, no matter how small, for women to stop being harmed by the attitude that's just the way things are. I'm going to begin this talk with the hateful nature of bathroom bills. The first time I heard about the fact that bathrooms are an issue legislatively and why regarding transgender rights, really, you could have picked my jaw from the floor. I was already 2 decades into public advocacy for queer rights. I had heard a lot. I mean, really? People think that some man is going to pretend to be female to have use of the women's room in order to perpetrate assault on those unsuspecting women in the bathroom? I mean, really? From there, nightmare transphobic scenarios ensue of little girls in the bathroom being assaulted by men who gained admittance to that room by dressing in women's clothing. Well, first of all, it's understood in this strange nightmare scenario that all you have to do to be transgender is dress in somebody else's clothing. That's just odd. So this morning, we will unwrap some harmful thoughts and practices being perpetrated even today about such things, and how we can stop adding to the harmful story. This year, the theme for International Women's Day is choose to challenge. It's something I do frequently, but not how we might think. Sometimes I do challenge a person or a group, but mostly I choose to challenge myself. And that is the message I have for each of you. Challenge yourselves. Challenge those cultural or societal norms and ask yourself, why are they the norm? And does that norm harm anybody? And maybe you might choose to challenge existing norms too. Bathroom bills. They scare people to maintain order, but they harm people. Usually they harm emotionally and psychologically, but also that phrase gay bashing, that does happen. Indiana does not have hate crime legislation. What we do have, although currently inactive, we'll have to see if it goes to the floor or not, House Bill 1456 was introduced in January and would make it a Class B misdemeanor for someone with 2 X chromosomes to use the men's restroom and for someone with at least 1 Y chromosome to use the women's bathroom. I will be watching this, and if we need to do letter writing or virtual phone banking, I will let all of you know. There's a difference between intellectually understanding something and experiencing it. Reading about the Grand Canyon does not prepare a person for the grandeur of experiencing it. Reading about hateful, horrible bathroom bills and forming an opinion is not the same thing as being with a person or being the person who is experiencing the oppression of that bill. Reading about John Lewis and Dr. King and everybody marching across the Edmund Pettus Bridge did not prepare folks 50 years later to fully understand what it was like to crest the curved bridge and not see what's coming. The first Sunday in March, besides being all of the other things I mentioned, is also Bloody Sunday when that happened. It's when American televisions showed the violence perpetrated on people of color, such that white people became allies, some willing to get involved in civil rights. Every time that you can, choose to challenge yourself. Choose to be a friend, or even the voice for somebody whose identity or existence is under fire. And if given the opportunity, choose to speak up when somebody attempts harm by pushing forth an outdated, ignorant, or downright hateful message. I invite you to think about Amanda Gorman's closing line of her beautiful inaugural poem, "The new dawn blooms as we free it, for there is always light if we're brave enough to see it, if only we're brave enough to be it." We can decide to be that light. Simply deciding to stop our own harmful behavior, even if we do not ever become outspoken advocates, that's us choosing to challenge the dominant culture of white male supremacy. That's us choosing to advance women's rights. If we choose to be the light, perhaps others might see it. Or perhaps we might see theirs. Learning about a bathroom bill for the first time, I almost literally could not believe it was real. I don't know if you all know this, but I'm pretty silly sometimes with my friends. We use absurdity and hyperbolic examples, and so I had dismissed it as absurd, thinking that my friends were kidding me, as they're likely to do. Surely, women don't look around in fear when we're in bathrooms. We don't make sure it's only us chickens here. I grew up. My young adult years were in gay bars, and it did not matter who was in which bathroom. We were all putting on eyeliner. The only time somebody has peered under a bathroom door at me, they were 2 years old, and they're adorable and annoying. If we open our minds to the idea that we could stop people from being harmed, and then enough of us choose to challenge our thoughts about existing norms by simply changing the story, well then cultural expectations can shift and harm decreases. Sometimes, in order to realize our own power and courage, we have to see the light in an oppressed person or in their ally so that we can be the light that they need to see reflected back. This is how cultural change happens, this is how laws are changed, and this is how oppressed people are freed. It's a slow process. I want to share some of my own journey. I have this daughter, her name's Eliza. She came out to us as being transgender in January of 2018 when she was in the 8th grade. Over that next year, our family had to learn quite a bit. The local middle school accommodated the news well. I admit I wasn't sure that would happen, but they did. I feared that she would be othered by the powers that be. She was accepted in her newly shared existence. Of course, individuals could still be terrible, but her chosen name and true female pronouns were respected by her teachers and administrators. This was huge. It became clear, however, in 8th grade, that the changing room situation was problematic because, well, the prevailing accepted story was then and still is that bathrooms and changing rooms are where people prey on each other. And they were expecting, the nameless, faceless people who spread this story, they were concerned that my darling child would be the predator. So let's just depart from my story for a moment and get clear about the propagation of this strange idea. Last week I preached about Abigail Adams, and she was quoted as writing to her husband John that, quote, all men would be tyrants if they could, end quote. The same belief that began our nation is in place within the dominant culture of white men. They set up and propagate the story of why laws are needed to protect these frail white women from other people like them. So in U.S. culture, women are taught to wear rape whistles, to put their keys between their fingers, to use as knives before heading to their cars, to be aware of surroundings, to not accept a drink that may have drugs in it, rather than the dominant story being boys being taught to not rape, not drug, not assault women and girls. I don't know if this story will get flipped during my lifetime, but I sure am working on it, and I know a lot of other people are, and I know a lot of you are. To date, there are absolutely 0 cases reported anywhere ever of a man masquerading as a woman who then assaulted women in the bathroom. And yet the laws get proposed. They get written, fears get spread, and the legend persists. White male lawmakers perpetrate the stories of stranger danger and the inherent evils of men of color and these imaginary trans people who are predators to hide the fact that harm against white women and all women and girls harm is statistically perpetrated by a white man that girl or woman knows. Now back to my journey. When my child was about to enter 9th grade, she and her father and I made an agreement. She would be totally out with everybody, and she would need to be in marching band so that she would be known by a big group. Now, I don't know if any of you all watched the one season of Firefly, but there's a scene in which a character who is different has been taken in by a strange town, and they've found her to be a witch, and they've got her tied to the stake, and they're about to burn her down when her friends come to rescue her, and they're trying to remove her from the fire, and the townspeople say, but she's a witch, and the Firefly people say, but she's our witch. So it was kind of like that. If you're going to be an out trans person in 9th grade in Elkhart, Indiana, you gotta have a bunch of people, even if they don't love you, at least know who you are. Because it's harder to other somebody when you know who they are. Even if they were not all close friends, it's hard to be nonchalant about somebody being harassed or harmed if you know their names. When the dominant culture centers on white men, everybody else is other. Women are the biggest group of others, and boy, do we get othered. From there, it breaks down further. Within the rank of male, black males are othered, trans men are othered, gay men are othered, but when the dominant culture is white men, all women are othered. Within that umbrella group of women, black women are further othered. Trans women are othered. Black trans women only have a life expectancy of 35 years. I choose to celebrate the richness of this diverse world and the contributions of all people, but we must always stay aware of the harm done when othering happens instead of acceptance, inclusiveness, diversity, equality, equity. The first day of her ninth grade, I drove her to school and dropped her off. I pulled around the corner for that little ceremonial mom cry, you know, where you play sunrise, sunset, and think about your baby growing up. Well, I turned on the radio. The news station, really, the very first story on the news station was that at this very moment, back then, a trans girl in Oklahoma was at the center of legal action regarding a bathroom issue. The school and the community had been fairly accepting of their first out trans student. They gave her a key to a staff bathroom to use to avoid all of the middle school drama of a gendered nature. But when the school held an active shooter drill in which every person in the school, students and staff and administration, hides in either the male dressing room or the female dressing room, and then those hallway gates come down and they close off certain passages, well, the special bathroom for her got closed off. So there's this little kid out in the hall, vulnerable to the pretend shooter, so that everybody else could feel comfortable in their accepted understanding of who should be in which locker room. As you might imagine, this story hit me really hard. I had just dropped off my beloved child, and I realized I didn't know what systems and procedures were in place. I didn't know what could be set in place. And while I had worried about bullying and harassment, now I was worried for her actual life. This was not going to work. So I did what a lot of us do. I wrote a letter. I wrote a letter to the administration stating that I was willing to work. I was willing to put in time to help them figure out whatever we as a caring community needed to do to keep all of our students safe. I sent the letter and was promptly called into the principal's office. Well, actually, I was called to the admin building, and I spoke with the superintendent and other big deals, and it was a great meeting. I wanted my kid to be known and not othered. And really, they have just super exceeded any of my expectations. Over that first year, great intention was given to accommodating her and dealing with overprotective mom. Remember that part where I said that I was willing to work and put in my time? Well, at the end of the school year, I was invited to take part in a thought leadership conference. I gave a workshop on how to help trans and non-binary kids be safer and feel better in school. It was a time of personal growth for me, realizing exactly how much people really do care. Sometimes they're scared they're going to make a mistake, and so they don't take the risk of hurting that vulnerable kid by refraining from contact. I said it then, and I say it now. Take the risk. Honest mistakes are fine. As we choose to challenge what we have known in order to help the person in front of us who we find challenging, this leads to growth. Love spreads, acceptance blooms, and we see the light in each other. Perhaps you will not be surprised that by her 10th grade year, I had been tapped to serve in a different capacity. I am the clergy community member on the school's equity board. I work with the school leadership under the tutelage of national equity organizations to make public school more equitable for all students. We have so far mostly explored areas of race, nationality, economic class, and disability, and I have learned so much about equity. Equality means everyone is treated the same, and that has usually been my focus. Equity focuses on individuals getting what they need to succeed. It's a bit more than equality. During one of our all-day sessions down in Indianapolis with school equity boards from all over the Midwest, I heard a great way to understand how important it is to build an equitable system. The allegory someone came up with is that it's like making a cake and forgetting the eggs. I'm not talking about vegan baking. I know you can make cake without eggs. I'm talking about your standard run-of-the-mill cake. If you make a cake and forget the eggs, it's not going to work to add them in later. It's just going to fall apart. Eggs are like the equity. They must be part of the process from the very beginning, or it's simply not going to work. Ever since hearing that and learning from these outstanding professional educators, now I look at situations and I wonder if each person is receiving equal access, even at UUFE meetings. By asking simple questions, we all make sure that there is more equal access available. Nothing is perfect, not at school or UUFE, but I see all of us working toward that better day. By being willing to do this work and talk about it, word got out, and last year I was appointed to the City of Elkhart Human Relations Commission. I am Commissioner DeBeck on the enforcement agency where complaints are investigated regarding discrimination in housing based on race or color, national origin, ancestry, religion, disability, sex, and familial status. State of Indiana, we don't have sexual orientation or gender yet, but we're getting there. All of the meetings and swearing in have been during COVID, but we've worked well to further non-discrimination in Elkhart. I serve on both of these boards because I choose to challenge myself. Ask non-accusatory questions about fairness and safety, and I choose to challenge myself to continue to be open to spending my valuable time in care of other people. I feel blessed. I feel lucky, even if it does make life a little bit busy. For all of these reasons, thinking about commitment, thinking about International Women's Day, thinking about women's history, please think about all the times that you or we have chosen to challenge. And then try to keep on doing that. It's how we keep changing the world. Thank you for being with us today, and I hope you enjoyed the service, and maybe I'll see you for 11:30 coffee hour, or 2 o'clock UU World discussion, or 3 o'clock with Kevin about Howard Zinn's A People's History of the United States. But I'm glad that you were with us. Our benediction is from Elena Westbrook. Go in hope, for the arc of the universe is long, and we can bend it toward justice. Go in courage, for today we have the strength to confront injustice in our daily lives and the larger world. Go in love, because a holy and generous love is both the reason and the means by which we transform our lives. Blessed be. Amen. Go in peace.